All right, so time for awkward YouTubes on this channel. And today we're going to be talking about pen names versus my real name. So if you've landed on this channel, it's because you follow me as RG Michaels. I write the Moving Live series starting with Rural. And that is a pen name that I created in the first part of it would have been 2019, right when the pandemic started, which was, a horrible time anyway. So why not start something complicated like, forming a pen name? And but that's not who I actually am. Who I am is Mike Van Gogh, writer of Christian nonfiction books. And so I'll put a link to my other YouTube channel there, so you can check that stuff up if you want. But I want to talk about pen names. Most importantly, what's a good use of them and what's a bad use of them. I came up with mine by listing out every variation of my given name. So my real name is Michael Ryan Van Gogh. That's what my mom used to yell when I was in trouble, except she'd do it in Dutch. And I took every variation of that and every, switching of letters and, middle name to first name, all that kind of stuff. And what stood out the most is kind of like an author-y sounding name was RG Michaels. I think I have a picture somewhere. I'll probably post it on my Instagram. Again, of the whiteboard where I wrote it all out. There's like 40 different names. One stuck out of all the, things that we tried. And we ended up with RG Michaels. And RG Michaels writes young adult fiction for mostly young adult males. I try to focus my efforts on writing books for young men and teen boys for that reason, because I think it's an underserved market. I mentioned that in my other video as well. That one of the things that got me into writing was seeing that there really is an absence of writing for specifically boys that isn't tied into other genres as a whole anyway. Like obviously, with sci-fi and fantasy, there's a lot more, boy readers if it's dedicated to that. But when you get into young adult literature, it tends to slant towards girls. And I think that's the niche that I want to try and carve out, is writing for young adult boys. And so I came up with a pen name. I started doing that. Wrote my first series, published it in all 3 books in 1 year, which was a lot of hard work with some pre-existing drafts, and with writing the last one kind of towards the end of the year. But it was fantastic. I really appreciated the process. I really grew as an author, and really kind of came into my own as what it would be like to write as a pen name. But the reason I did that is just to separate these two things, because a book about a teenage boy who ends up moving from the city to the country and dealing with friends and family and all that kind of drama is very different than a book about Christian theology and how it relates to the internet. Like, they might intersect a bit, but they're very different things. The crowds that read both those books are going to be different. And so the reason I did a pen name was to separate that for convenience only. And I think that's a great way. I think that's a great way to really kind of focus in on things, to get yourself into certain moods to writing, because I would fluctuate all the time. There'd be times where I really wanted to write fiction, then I really wanted to write nonfiction, and it seemed like the mood I was in, and they would bleed into each other and actually cause my progress on all my projects to kind of fizzle out. But when I could get into the mindset like, no, RG Michaels is writing this fiction book and Mike Van Gogh is writing this this nonfiction book, it really helped me separate it and really helped me try to stay focused while doing those projects. So that's how I came up with it, and that's what I used them for. But one of the topics that came up when I was researching pen names and when I was trying to figure out if it was something I wanted to do and if it was something that I should do, especially as a Christian author, was this concept of vice tourism. I heard it on the Stories of Soul Food podcast. They talked about it kind of briefly, of people who will write certain books as a Christian, but use a pen name to write the stuff that might sell better or would give them a different market to gain money from, where it's immoral to read. Like, you can't write steamy romances as a youth pastor. You can't write explicit sex scenes as someone who goes to church and professes to be a Christian, because that stuff's explicit and it causes people to lust. That doesn't mean that there can't be scenes that talk about issues like sex or violence in literature, but it's the treatment therein. And pen names give you this wonderful way of escaping all that, because all you have to do is get a properly edited avatar where your face doesn't show, or where you're using even like a cartoon face or something like that, and create your whole brand for that entire pen name on anonymity. And it allows you basically to kind of like tiptoe through vices like, erotica and, violence and gore and all that kind of stuff. And then, just hop back into your church clothes for Sunday as you pretend to be a Christian. Vice tourism is definitely a thing that it's a temptation and a real thing to be considered when you're going with your pen name. Because if you don't have a pen name, everything's attached to your name. And if you're not open with your pen name like I am, where I openly, point people to both things, like this is my fiction writing under this name and this is my nonfiction writing under my real name. If you don't point people like that and you're not honest about your name, it's a real temptation. You create this like false self of yourself, this incognito version of you, and all the parts of you that you wouldn't show anyone because it can hide under that pen name and you become this different person. And that's not something I want to do. It's definitely something that I think a lot of authors can struggle with. And when you get too loose with your pen names, when you get too casual with just making a persona in order to sell a product, it definitely shows up in kind of like the underlying causes or the motivations for using a pen name. And I didn't want that. I literally just wanted a pen name so that I could keep my young adult literature and my theology literature separate, so that they were distinct brands, but they would always kind of reference each other. And so this is me, R.G. Michaels, Mike Van Gogh, however you come to know me. This is who I am. These are my pen names, and these are two of my books. Thanks.